Here's how you install a brand new M.2 SSD in your PS5. It's a very easy process. It's a lot easier than one would think. Just the most complicated thing here is making sure that you buy the correct drive before you attempt to install this, which the minimum requirements for that would be a PCIe Gen 4 SSD, a minimum storage capacity of 250 gigabytes up to 4 terabytes. The industry form factor for SSDs, PS5 can accommodate 2230, 2242, 2260, 2280, and 22110. The dimensions with a heatsink installed, Sony does recommend that this has a heatsink, so that's not really optional. Make sure you have a heatsink in some way, shape, or form. A width up to 25 millimeters and a thickness up to 11.25 millimeters. For the read speed, this is also very important. PS5 has an extremely fast SSD, so anything that you install inside this has to match or exceed recommended up to or over 5,500 megabytes per second. So for this, we have a Western Digital SN850, which has a read speed of 7,000 megabytes per second. And you can buy SSDs with or without a heatsink pre-installed. For clarity's sake, we have one without the heatsink, and then we can buy one separately, which we have right here, so we can also just showcase real quick how easy that is. And to make this even more simple, the description will be listed with a bunch of up-to-date SSDs for PS5 with heatsinks pre-installed, without, and then separate heatsinks that you can buy after the fact. And don't worry about these separate heatsinks. They're $10, $15, very affordable, so don't be afraid to buy an SSD without the heatsink. If there's a good price available for one, then I would say go for that, and then buy the heatsink separately. So let's actually tackle that first and put these two together. Depending on the heatsink that you buy, it might be double-sided, it might be one-sided. This particular one is double-sided, so it has two little very tiny thermal pads that'll sit on top of the SSD. It even comes with its own little screwdriver here. And there we go. Comes right off. And the SSD is going to live right in between this. We can peel off this little film and free our very tiny thermal pad. Take our SSD and put it right in the middle there, and give yourself enough room to where it plugs in on this side, and you can screw it down on that side. Just try to level it out as best as you can. Place your new thermal pad on top and just give yourself enough room in between, again, where you're plugging it in and screwing it down. So try to be as even as possible. And just place the top right over, and then you're going to screw it into place for this particular heatsink. And there we go, we are all set for installation, which, by the way, for this heatsink and a lot of others, they come with extra little screw in case you lose one of these, since they're very tiny. When it comes to removing the PS5's faceplates, very easy if you've never done it before. I'll show you real quick on both. The digital console with no reference for the disk drive, it's very simple when you look at the PlayStation logo right there. Have it face down, console facing away from you. Place it down. Lift one corner right here, other corner here. Apply pressure lifting up gently, not a whole lot of pressure, but gently on both sides. Probably a little bit more pressure up here where you're lifting up. And we're sliding to the left, or what would be your left hand. Very easy. It might be a little difficult, or you might need to apply extra pressure on your first time, and don't be worried if you have these crazy streaks going out of these little pockets here. That happens usually sometimes when you're doing it for the first attempt, and it's just a cosmetic thing really. It's just dragging across the plastic there. It's not a huge deal, but this is where our SSD would be installed. Disk console, same deal. PS logo down. We can see the disk drive more prominently. Corner to corner, left, comes right off. Here's where the M.2 SSD will go. So we'll remove this screw here to lift up this plate. Keep this for later. Now this is very important. Right here is our little standoff. We want to take this out first. The standoff is very important because the M.2 SSD is basically going to sit a little bit above this, and so it's going to sit on top of that and screw down from there on the other side. Size up your SSD. You know it's going to go right there. So take your, just the little standoff again, Place it in there. SSD installs a little bit at an angle. And it sits flush against your standoff. And that's where you're going to screw it down from there. And that's it, you did it. Put your shield back on. It's also required that you make sure you put this back and reassemble the console. Put your faceplate back on and sort of set it into place just slightly offset from the left where you took it off, and apply pressure to the right this time. You'll hear that snap, you know it's good to go. Once you plug your PS5 back in and power up, and if everything goes according to plan, it should recognize the SSD right away, give you a read speed just to let you know that it is okay. It'll format the drive, and then you're pretty much all set. You can check out your console storage, and you can see that it now shows up as a separate directory, so you can actually install games on the internal storage, the M.2 SSD, or for example, you might have an external drive for PS4 games. Still recommended if you have a lot of games between PS4 and 5, install PS4 games there, and then now you have more PS5 storage for native PS5 games. You can also set a toggle so that every time you install a new PS5 game, it goes right to the M.2 storage before it reaches your internal storage. And that is it, you did it. Enjoy your new storage on PS5, and if you're new here, consider subscribing for the best PlayStation news, reviews, and updates that are here on YouTube. You can also follow me on Twitter at Mystic Ryan, and that is it. I will see you all in my next video. You take it easy.